Good evening, April 8th. Warning 6162 Wolves, weary in spirit. What a day, eh? So much happening, so much coming to the fore this week. And I know that our Gamley, being astute as we are, has already seen this article, but being Coastal Post, I have to say something. Before I go any further, I want to just tell you that as you know, I've been living on the Olympic Peninsula until very recently, and almost ever since Fukushima occurred, and you will not hear this in mainstream media, but let me tell you this: almost all Olympic Peninsula beaches have been closed to clamming ever since Fukushima. There have been times when the Department of Health, in its great infinite wisdom, relented and reopened them. There were periods of time when people who were clamming became inexplicably ill, and then the beaches were closed again, and there was no red tide going on. And remember me talking about the radioactive kelp I encountered on Dungeness Spit last summer. Okay, so I just had to tell you this. You'll never ever find this out. It was never in the media, but the beaches were closed on the Olympic Peninsula for most of the time since Fukushima to clamming. There were there were places where the not all beaches, many beaches. Now we'll look at this. E&E Energy News. ENEnews.com. Just in could it really happen? State of Washington to begin testing clams for Fukushima. Uh, and so on. Okay, so you can read the whole article. I wanted to point this out. They do have a video. I won't actually log in and show you the video because you can do that. But look at this source. Government docs suggests human experimentation related to Fukushima radiation. And then there's the video. Washington, and the video is based upon a King 5 News article by Glenn Farley, May 7th. Washington fish tested for tsunami-related radiation. Do salmon and steelhead returning to Washington rivers come with a dose of radiation from Japan's crippled Fukushima nuclear power plant? Washington State Department of Health officials don't think so, but they're testing fish anyway. We're planning on collecting returning salmon and steelhead until public concern abates, said Mike Pretty, the Richland-based manager of DOH's Environmental Sciences section. Pretty said clams will also be tested. As for that steelhead tested in lab, no radiation beyond normal background levels found naturally was detected. Did the clam swim over from Japan? Oh my God. Okay, King 5 News. This is the concurrent story. Washington fish tested for tsunami-related radiation. Okay, there's the steelhead being sliced up and thrown in a blender. And you can go on and read all of that. But I just want to say something in just a moment here. Oops. Okay, returning you to the source article. Washington fish tested for tsunami-related radiation. It's the article in full from King 5 News. www.king5.com. It's the article in full. You can go read it there on that website. Okay, what I wanted to point out here, two things. Mike Pretty is with the incredibly brilliant Washington Department of Health. These are the same people who are telling you that Washington State, and actually concurrently now Oregon too, are experiencing massive epidemic of whooping cough. Remember, most of the people developing the whooping cough have already been vaccinated against whooping cough. Think DPT shots. Secondly, think about the timing of the sudden outbreak of, quote, whooping cough, unquote. that actually coincides with the arrival, if there were, let me say, just retract a little bit. Remember Dutch showing us a video about a possible cloud of depleted uranium striking Washington and Oregon about 10 days ago? That coincides with the outbreak of the, quote, whooping cough. Okay, there's the wisdom of the Washington Department of Health. The other thing I want to point out is that Mike Pretty is based in Richland. What's in Richland? Oh, Hanford Nuclear Facility. Excuse my sarcasm, but, one really has to think about this. Alaska says testing fish for radiation is unnecessary. May 7, 2012 by Jason Lamb, Channel 2 News out of Anchorage. This is KTUU.com. I'll put the links with the article. Anchorage, Alaska. Testing Alaska salmon and other fish for radiation after Japan's earthquake, tsunami, and resulting nuclear disaster is unnecessary, according to the state of Alaska. Washington State is now testing samples of fish caught in its rivers for radiation levels, but Alaska environmental health officials say they plan no such testing. State of Alaska says it simply doesn't need to do that kind of testing for Alaska fish. The environmental health director for the Department of Environmental Conservation says Washington State is likely making the decision to test its fish because of the availability of labs there. The Alaska DEC cites data that shows fish harvested in Alaska aren't going anywhere near the shores of Japan, where radiation levels are high. I apologize, my screencast-o-matic is wonky tonight. But I'll read that again. The Environmental Health Director for the Department of Environmental Conservation in Alaska says Washington State is likely making the decision to test its fish because of the availability of labs there. Well, there's labs in Alaska. The Alaska DEC cites data that shows fish harvested in Alaska aren't going anywhere near the shores of Japan, where radiation levels are high. One moment, please. Remember this? Pacific seafood may become a thing of the past. I did this video a couple of months ago. I recommend that you guys have a look at this again. You can Google Pacific seafood may become a thing of the past. I'm sad to say I think that my video was probably quite prophetic. One moment. So you can find it on my website, Warning 616 YouTube channel. Pacific seafood may become a thing of the past. And when you pull it up on Google, you'll see there are a lot of other videos that would corroborate my suspicions, and what we know in our hearts is true. Wild Alaskan sockeye salmon and cod radiation by Organic Stant channel. Tuna fish from Pacific Ocean is radioactive by OddZadzy123. Radiation tainted fish from Japan reaches, and so forth, by Nuclear Health channel. Millions of Pacific sardines dead by READDA channel. This is Warning 616 out. Blessings to all of you.